preparing the live stream. Setting up for meeting. Okay, we're live. Good morning, everyone, and good morning, Zalman, as well. Today, what? I'm not sure what that was. Today we are joined by, what's your name? Mendel and Moshka. At the end of the class, you can each have one more, okay? But that's only at the end. So now you guys play and enjoy, okay? I hope we're all doing well. And we are going to get started. Last week, we ended off discussing about the piety of King David and how he had a teacher whose name was Mephibosheth. And every time he had a question, he would rule, and then he would pass his ruling by Mephibosheth to see if he had ruled correctly or incorrectly. Steve, I found a nice answer for you. I mean, there were a few answers, but one of them that I like. Someone who does all the right thing is called righteous. Piety is someone who goes beyond the letter of the law. And piety may not be the most perfect translation of the word chassid in Hebrew. The word chassid means someone who does kindness. So, okay, well, if you want, you can finish your popcorn. If you want, you can play. That's what we have here. But we're not having more Hanukkah out right now. I don't have anything else right here. Okay? If you want to, next time you could stay home and I'll bring Leia instead. Okay, so if you want to be here, this is what's available. You can have some water also. So, the word chassid comes from the word chesed, which means kindness. Someone who does kindness. And the translation, the explanation of the word chassid is someone who does kindness with his creator. How do you do? Only inside, not in the hallway, because I don't know who else is in the building today. And so someone who does kindness with his creator means does even more than Hashem asked for. So the translation of piety from the Hebrew is someone who is doing extra nice things for Hashem, doing even more than Hashem asked him to do. Moshka, if you're going to be disturbing and not make noise, okay, yeah. But if you're going to be disturbing, we're not going to be able to do this again. Okay, so with that introduction, let's jump right in to today's discussion. We're going to continue about David and Mephibosheth. Okay, Kindle, only whispering, please. Thank you. So, we're over here. It was taught in a Tosefta. It was taught in a Tosefta from the Tanakh tradition. His name was not really Mephibosheth. Rather, his name was Ishbosheth. So why was Ishbosheth referred to as Mephibosheth? Because he would embarrass Mevayesh. Mephibosheth sounds like to embarrass David in matters of halacha. In other words, yes, you can sit on that chair. You're gonna have to ask me all the questions when I'm done. So he would embarrass David in matters of halacha. In other words, King David was a brilliant mind, yet Mephibosheth or Ishbosheth was that much more brilliant that he would bring proofs or sources or analyze things from such a deeper perspective that King David would be embarrassed by the way the laws were portrayed by Mephibosheth. So according to this approach, Mephibosheth is an abbreviation of Boshet Panim, which means embarrassment. Because David was not embarrassed to admit his errors, in other words, even though he knew that by bringing his rulings before Mephibosheth, he may end up being embarrassed. Because Mephibosheth would say, no, you did this wrong, you did that wrong, and then it would be very embarrassing for him. But King David, all he cared about was that the ultimate ruling should be correct. He didn't care for his own honor. He did not care for his own embarrassment. And he went ahead and still consulted with Mephibosheth, even though he would be embarrassed by it. And because he was not embarrassed to admit his errors, he merited that Kilov, who was, according to tradition, exceedingly wise, would descend from him. Kilov was a son of King Solomon. King Solomon was a son of Does anybody know who was King Solomon's father? King Solomon's father was King David. So King David had a grandson whose name was Kilov, who was very, very wise, and he merited to have such a wise grandson. Moshkai answered that question already. He merited to have such a wise grandson because he was not embarrassed to seek information from Mephibosheth, even though that would sometimes cause him embarrassment. Okay, so who is this Kilov? Rabbi Yochanan said his name was not Kilov. Rather, his name was Daniel, as it appears in a different list of David's descendants. So in some places he's called Kilov, and in some places he's called Daniel. Daniel was his real name, but why was he called Kilov? He was called Kilov because he would embarrass. From the word machlim, Kilov has the same root as the word machlim, which means to embarrass. Now, who would he embarrass? He would embarrass Mephibosheth, the teacher or authority figure in the matters of halacha. He would be machlim he would embarrass the father. Who was the father of all wisdom at that time was Mephibosheth, or smartness, I should say. And this grandson of King David would embarrass Mephibosheth when it came to halacha. So things turned full circle. Mephibosheth was way advanced, was much more advanced than King David, but because King David still was willing to submit before Mephibosheth and bring all the halachic queries before him, King David merited to have a grandson who would do the same to Mephibosheth, that he was even smarter than Mephibosheth, and he would analyze things from such angles and bring such clarity to things that even Mephibosheth would become embarrassed from the way that this Daniel or Kilov would portray things. Yes, Mushka. When are we done? In about a half hour. If you want, you could also look through the pictures of that calendar. I'm not sure if you've ever seen that one before. L'chaim. In his book of wisdom, Solomon said about this wise son, "My son, if your heart is wise, my heart will be glad, even mine." That's from Proverbs. As David enjoyed witnessing his son Kilov, or maybe it was his son, not his grandson. It could be that this Kilov was actually the son of, I thought it was the grandson. I thought it was the son of Solomon, but it could be that it was the brother of Solomon, the son of King David. I apologize. So in his book of wisdom, Solomon said about King David's son, his brother, Kilov, "My son, if your heart is wise, my heart will be glad, even mine." As David enjoyed witnessing his son Kilov develop into a Torah luminary to the extent that Kilov was able to respond to Mephibosheth, and Solomon says about Kilov, "Be wise, my son, and make my heart glad, that I may respond to those who taunt me." In other words, he was taunted by Mephibosheth, who would say, "King David, you are wrong and you are mistaken." And now he had a son, King David had a son who could say to Mephibosheth, "You are wrong and you are mistaken." Back to the discussion about King David's piety. With regards to David's statement, "Keep my soul, for I am pious." And we discussed a few reasons of why perhaps King David called himself pious. The Gemara asks, did David call himself pious? Is it not written, "If I had not believed to look upon the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living"? So the word lule, which means, it's like halavai. King David is saying, halavai, that I should be able to look upon the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Are we all familiar with the word halavai?
No.
Halavai means if only. If only I believe to look upon the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. The dots that appear over the word lule in the text indicate doubt and uncertainty of his piety, and whether he was actually deserving of a place in the land of the living. and we bring a proof over here from a Tosefta. In the name of Rabbi Yossi, it was taught in the Tosefta. Why did dots appear over the word lule as if there are some reservations? Because David said before the Holy One, blessed be he, Master of the universe, I have every confidence in you that you grant an excellent reward to the righteous in the world to come, since God's ultimate goodness is manifest in the land of eternal life. But I still harbor uncertainty with regard to myself, and I do not know whether or not I definitely have a portion among them. In any case, apparently David was uncertain whether or not he deserved to receive a portion of God's reward for the righteous. How then could he characterize himself as pious if King David wasn't even sure whether he was righteous or not? How could he say that he was pious if he's not sure whether he has a portion with those who are, if he's not even sure whether he has a portion among the righteous in the world to come? How could he say, I am pious, therefore God should save my soul? Yes, Mendel. Yeah. The Gemara responds, his concern does not prove anything, as King David knew that he was pious. He was simply concerned lest the transgression that he might commit in the future will cause him to lose his opportunity to look at the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Yes, it is Mushka. So King David knew that he was pious, and he knew that he had done everything right, yet he was still concerned. He was still concerned that maybe he will sin and lose his portion. This one, no. Maybe he will sin and lose his portion in the world to come. And that is super powerful. Super duper powerful. King David was the most righteous of all men. You can ask me your question. You can ask me your questions when I'm done. You're gonna have to be quiet now because I'm teaching. Thank you. So yes. No, you're gonna put them back. Because otherwise I'm gonna say you can't have any. Thank you. King David, he was a king of Israel. He did everything correctly. Yet he himself said, I don't know what's going to be my future. So often we feel confident in ourselves and our abilities. Look how far I've gotten until now, and I've done such a good job. I am certain in myself that I will not sin. Yet King David is saying, never be so sure of yourself. You never know what kind of temptations you can come across, even in your old age, even after living a life of piety and spiritual perfection. The evil inclination is very smart, and you never know what you might fall into. So King David is teaching us a very important lesson over here. Even if you're wise and smart and holy and pious like King David, still be uncertain about your future, and make sure that you're always on guard to make sure that you're going to stay on the straight and narrow. And now the Gemara cites a proof that there is room for one to fear lest he commit a transgression in the future, in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yaakov bar Idi, as Rabbi Yaakov bar Idi raised a contradiction between two verses. It is written that God told Jacob in his vision of the ladder, right? Where Jacob, I think we mentioned this vision of the ladder before already. I don't remember for sure if we did or not. But Jacob, in his vision about the ladder, was told by God, behold, I am with you and I will guard you wherever you go. Yet when Jacob returned to Canaan and realized that Esau was coming to greet him, it says, and Jacob became very afraid and he was pained. Why didn't Jacob rely on God's promise, right? God already promised him, I'm going to be with you and I will guard you wherever you go. And then when Jacob is coming and he hears that Esau, his brother, is coming to fight him with 400 men, and he was afraid. Jacob became very afraid and he was pained. I mean, God promised you that he will be with you and guard you. What are you afraid of? What is there to fear? Why did Jacob not rely on God's promise? Because Jacob had concerns, and he said to himself, lest the transgression that I might have committed after God made his promise to me will cause God to revoke his promise of protection. Maybe I did something wrong and I didn't live up to the standards that God had expected of me, and I've lost my protection. Apparently,
maybe guilty. Could it be that he felt guilty about how it's been a while, but didn't Jacob kind of cheat Esau out of his birthright? Something about a bowl of soup.
That is correct. That is what happened.
And then he felt guilty about
So
cheating his
that's
brother.
an interesting idea. The sale, yeah, go get a paper. The story of the sale of the birthright happened before God's promise to Jacob. So he was worried that perhaps while he was by his father-in-law's house, maybe he did something wrong over there. That's right, based on Magdalet on the top. Okay. Apparently, at times, transgression does cause God's promise to go unfulfilled, as it was taught explicitly in a brisa with regards to ostensible, redundant language in a verse in the Song of the Sea. Until your people will cross, Lord, until the people you have acquired will cross. You bring them in and plant them in the mountain of your inheritance, the place, Lord, which you made for your dwelling. The Gemara interprets homiletically over here that until your people will cross refers to the first entry into Eretz Yisrael during the time of Joshua, while until the people you have acquired pass over refers to the second entry following the exile in Babylonia. So a little bit of history over here. The Jewish people were in the desert for 40 years. At the end of the 40 years, who passed away before they went into Israel? A great leader, Moses. Moses passed away, and who took the Jewish people across the Jordan River and into Israel?
Aaron.
Sorry?
Aaron?
Not Aaron. Good guess, though. Aaron also passed away in the desert. Joshua led the Jewish people into Israel. So the first entry into Israel of the Jewish people was by Joshua, and they experienced incredible miracles that we'll learn about much later on in the Talmud. The Jordan River split, and the water continued flowing. So when you split an ocean, everything is dry, and you just put up walls and that's it. But if you put a dam in the Jordan River and the water's still flowing, so the water actually continued flowing and rose up high, and there's a discussion in the Talmud about how high it went. But the water just continued flowing, and instead of going across and washing over the Jews, it began rising upwards. And they saw tremendous miracles, like when they went to Jericho, etc., when the walls fell down. The Jewish people saw tremendous miracles as they were entering in Israel the first time. They were there in Israel for many hundreds of years, and then after the destruction of the temple, the Jewish people were led in chains to Babylonia. After the 70 years of exile, there was a prophet named Ezra. He was a scribe. He was the head of the Jewish people at the time, the head of the Jewish court of law. And he led the Jewish people back into the land of Israel. And the sages say, based on these verses, right? So we said that two entrances into Israel. One is referring to the entrance in the time of Joshua, and one is referring to the entrance in the time of Ezra. And based on the juxtaposition of these two entries in this single verse, the sages said, the people of Israel were worthy of having a miracle performed on their behalf in the time of Ezra the scribe, just as one was performed on their behalf in the time of Joshua the son of Nun. However, transgression caused the absence of a miracle. When the Jewish people returned with the land of Ezra, everything was in natural order and they did not receive any miracles. And the reason why they didn't receive any miracles is because they had sinned and were not worthy of the miracles. So even though the Jews theoretically could have had miracles happen for them, they were not worthy of those miracles. And now we finally finish our discussion over here and get back to the Mishnah. Does everybody remember that we started off the entire discussion with the Mishnah? The Mishnah, what was the topic of the Mishnah? What was the Mishnah discussing? Which concept?
When you say the Shema, so
Reciting Shema. Did I hear someone say reciting the Shema?
Susie did.
Okay, very good. Reciting the Shema. So we've now, after 3 pages of discussions about King David and the watchmen and the horses and the donkeys and the dogs and the demons. So now we finished our discussion about the start time of saying Shema. We had a few different opinions about when does Shema start. Now the Gemara returns to explain what we learned in the Mishnah. And the rabbis say the time for reciting of the evening Shema is until midnight. The end time, now we're going to start discussing the end time of saying Shema. Until when is the latest time you can say Shema in the evening? And the rabbis say, until what time?
Midnight.
Until
No.
midnight. Very good. So now the Gemara asks, in accordance with whose opinion do they hold in explaining the verse when you lie down? Remember, we said when you rise up and when you lie down is going to be the times of saying Shema. So when you lie down is going to be the time of saying Shema in the evening. How are the rabbis interpreting and explaining the verse when you lie down? If they explain this verse in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, who says that when you lie down is the time when people customarily go to sleep, meaning at what time are people going to sleep? Some people go to sleep early, some people go to sleep late. So if they're talking according to the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, who says that when you lie down means the time when people are laying down and going to bed, let the rabbis just say, and go also with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, that the time for reciting the Shema ends in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, which is the end of the first watch. In other words, people are not going to sleep at 3 a.m., at least not normal people. Okay, I shouldn't say it like that. Most people are not usually in the habit of going to sleep at 3 a.m. Yes, it happens. We were all teenagers at some point in our life. But regular people who have day jobs are going to sleep sometime between nightfall and the end of the first watch. 10, 11, 12 o'clock, depending on the time of the year. So if the rabbis are saying that it's the time when people are going to sleep, well, people usually are asleep by midnight. Midnight is often past 12 o'clock. And let's give ourselves a pat on the back. We have finished page 4a.
Oh,
So anyone who is, according to Rabbi Eliezer, anyone who's planning on going to sleep in the night is already sleeping at this time. And if they explain this verse in accordance with the opinion of Rabban Gamliel, who says that when you lie down refers to the time while people are sleeping, starts at the beginning of the night and ends at the end of the night. People sleep during the night. It's not about when you're heading to bed. It's about, give me a minute, Mendel. It's not about when you're heading to bed. It's about while you're asleep. So if the rabbis are saying that it's while you're sleeping, then let them say, according to Rabban Gamliel, who says that when you lie down refers to the entire night. And then let the rabbis also say that one may recite the evening Shema until dawn in accordance with the opinion of Rabban Gamliel. Yes, Mendel. You can look, but you cannot touch. Those are stamps. If you want to send a mail, or if you want to send a letter in the mail, if you want to send a letter in the mail, you have to put a stamp on it.
oh no wonder. Holy smoke.
It's a sticker stamp.
Yes.
You see this envelope has one? Every envelope that goes in the mail gets a stamp.
One type of stamp.
There are different kinds of stamps if you want to send it.
Necklace.
Okay.
She got a bunch
So-
of them. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, all in there.
If you want to, you can open up this and look at the pictures inside it. This is
Mm.
okay. So the question is like this. The rabbis say that you can say Shema until midnight. How are they translating the words when you lay down? If they're saying when you lay down means when you're heading to bed and when people are going to sleep, when you're going to sleep, so then let them say that the beginning of the night while people are going to sleep. People by midnight, anyone who's planning on going to sleep, if you were planning on waking up in the morning, then usually you're going to be asleep by midnight. And if their point of translation is that while you lay down means not while you're heading to bed, but while you're actually sleeping, then let them agree with Rabban Gamliel that it's until the morning. So who are they going according to? Are they translating the words that it's when you're heading to bed, or are they translating the word while you're sleeping? Either way, midnight does not seem to fit with either of those translations. Is the question clear? Is the question clear?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Who wants to attempt an answer?
What's the question?
Sorry?
What's the question?
The question is, the rabbis say that you can say Shema until midnight. And the question is, if they're translating when you lie down as the time when you're heading to sleep, then the end time of saying Shema should be earlier than that, because people are going to sleep before midnight. If they're translating when you lay down as while you're laying down, then the end time of saying Shema should be all the way until dawn while people are sleeping. So where did they pull this midnight idea from? Where did the rabbis get it from that you should say Shema until midnight? Does anybody want to give an answer? It's an answer that we have already touched upon when we learned the Mishnah in the beginning.
Something about the different watches, the 3 watches or 4 watches.
No, it's a good guess, but no.
It has to do perhaps with when somebody works. So somebody coming home late can say the Shema.
Good attempt, but
Until dawn.
Does anybody remember the story with Rabban Gamliel's kids who came home late from a wedding?
I don't remember that.
Okay, so let's see the Gemara's response. The Gemara answers, actually, the rabbis hold in accordance with the opinion of Rabban Gamliel. So really, the rabbis agree with Rabban Gamliel that you can say Shema all night while ever people are sleeping, which is the entire night while it's dark outside. From nightfall until dawn, you can say the Shema. And the fact that they said only until midnight is in order to distance a person from transgressing. As it was taught in a Brisa, the rabbis created a fence for their pronouncements with regard to the reciting of Shema, in order to prevent a situation where a person comes home from the field in the evening, tired from his day work, and knowing that he's permitted to recite Shema until dawn, he says to himself, let me go home. I'm going to eat a little. You're going to have to wait, Mushka. I'm going to eat a little. I'm going to drink a little. I'll take a little nap. And then I'll be refreshed and I'll be able to recite Shema and recite the evening prayers. In the meantime, he is overcome by sleep and ends up sleeping all night. How many times did it happen that we get home and we have a list of things to do and we say, you know what, let me eat, let me refresh myself, I'll take a little nap and then I'll get up to do the rest of my things, and you wake up in the morning. Or I'm not sure how relatable this is for all of you, but it happens sometimes for me. I'm going to put the kids to sleep and you lay down with them and, let me just lay down with the kids and help them fall asleep. And I'm going to get up and do all the things around the house that need to get done. And then by the time you wake up from sleeping with your kids, it's already the morning and you don't get anything done. Anyone relate to that? Remember, I'm speaking, you're not going to interrupt me.
Years ago.
Yeah?
Years ago.
Years ago. Okay. Yes, Mendel, what did you want to say? That envelope also has a sticker. Yes, it does. Yes, Moshko. When are we done? In about 12 minutes. Okay, so the rabbis wanted to make sure that you're not going to do that. However, since one is concerned lest he fall asleep and fail to wake up before midnight in order to recite Shema at the appropriate time, he will come from the field in the evening, enter the synagogue, and until it is time to pray, he will immerse himself in Torah. If he's accustomed to reading the Bible, he'll read from the Bible. If he's accustomed to learning Mishnayos at a more advanced level of learning, he will learn. And then he will recite Shema and pray as he should. And when he goes home, he'll eat his meal with a contented heart and recite the blessing. In other words, when you come home from work, you don't stay in the field until it's dark. You come home a little before dark. So because the time of evening prayers has not yet arrived, a person may say, let me go home and let me take a little nap until the night falls, and then I'll get up and say Shema. Meanwhile, they'll fall asleep until the morning. So if they know that they only have until midnight, they'll go to the synagogue, they'll learn a little bit and be involved in good things, and then they'll say the evening Shema, and then they'll go home, eat supper, make a blessing, content and knowing that they've done what they have to do. So really, yeah, you could go until dawn, but initially, you got to try to be finished by midnight to make sure that you get your priorities straight and you do the first things first. So that's the opinion of the rabbis. The Brisa concludes with the warning. Anyone who transgresses the pronouncements of the sages is liable to receive the death penalty. Let me ask you. If someone transgresses the pronouncement of the sages over here and recites Shema after midnight, have they fulfilled their obligation?
Yeah.
Yes, they have. The reason why there is this fence that you have to say Shema, before midnight is in order that people should not transgress. Shouldn't fall asleep and wake up only once it's light and it's too late to say Shema. What do you think? Do you think that's a valid reason for the death penalty?
It was a little harsh.
A little harsh, you think? Okay. Maybe we got to move to North Korea. Right? I didn't think that Judaism
Or
was like that.
Texas.
Sorry?
Or Texas.
Or Texas. So the Gemara asks your question. This is a startling conclusion. What is different in all other places that it is not taught one is liable to receive the death penalty? And what is different here that it is taught that he is liable to receive the death penalty? There is no unique stringency apparent in the rabbinic restriction on the recitation of Shema. Why was this law singled out for the death penalty if you transgress? Yes, Mushka. What? About 8 minutes. Say 10? Okay. 10 minutes. So the Gemara offers two answers, explaining that the conclusion of the Brisa essentially stems not from the magnitude of the transgression, but rather from concern that the fence created around this particular mitzvah may be neglected. It's very nice, yeah. But make sure that they all go back in the bag when we're done. So it's not because there's something specifically stringent about this law, but the rabbis knew that people are not necessarily going to take this one so seriously. Therefore, they said that it is equivalent and paramount to a transgression liable of the death penalty. In other words, you may not think that it's a serious transgression, but you should know that this is a big deal. So there's two answers going to be given over here. If you wish, say that one returning from work is quite anxious to go to sleep, and due to risk that he will be overcome by sleep, he must be particularly vigilant in the recitation of Shema. Therefore, the rabbi said, if you don't do this, you are liable for the death penalty, in order to encourage people to say Shema before they go to sleep. And if you wish, say instead that strong language is employed here in order to exclude the opinion of he who says that although the morning prayer and afternoon prayer are mandatory, the evening prayer is optional. Therefore, it teaches us that I'm in the middle of a sentence, you're going to wait. Therefore, it teaches us that the evening prayer is mandatory, and anyone who transgresses the pronouncement of the sages in this regard is liable to receive the death penalty. So it's to teach us a lesson. It's in order to teach us a lesson. It's not necessarily that,
They take upon it
no.
the law, make laws with the Jewish people. You've done someone to death because they didn't say the Shema.
Okay.
I don't understand.
To make sure they do it. They take it
So
seriously.
the two answers are either we want to make sure that people understand the magnitude of this, the severity of saying Shema in time. We want to give people a little bit of a kick in the pants to remember, like a little bit of a extra encouragement to say Shema before going to sleep. The other answer is to let people know that the evening prayers are not optional. The evening prayers are mandatory. Yes, Mushka. I said no, and I said don't ask me again about that. Okay? Thank you. In this brisa,
So cute.
you can have 2 chocolate points. But when we're done, not yet. Now it's time to start cleaning everything up and putting your shoes on. Okay, so all the papers go in the garbage. In 5 more minutes. All the papers go in the garbage. Make sure your shoes are on, and then let me know once all the dreidels are back in the bag and everything is in the garbage and all the toys are packed away. Okay. In this brisa, now we're going to analyze this. In this brisa, the master said that when one returns from work in the evening, he enters the synagogue, recites Shema, and prays. From this brisa, we see that at night, just as during the day, one first recites Shema and then prays. In other words, the Shmona Esrei, the Amida. So the core of davening, the core of Jewish prayer, is the Shema with the blessings before and after, and the Shmona Esrei, which is also known as the Amida, which the silent prayer that we say standing up. So we learned in the brisa that from this that a person first recites Shema and then prays. So from this brisa, we see that at night, we know that in the daytime we first say Shema and then we pray, but we have a discrepancy, a discussion about the evening Shema. And this brisa supports the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. As Rabbi Yochanan said, who is assured of a place in the world to come? It is one who juxtaposes the blessing of redemption that we recite after Shema to the evening prayer, the evening silent prayer, the Amida, the Shmona Esrei. And Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says the prayers were instituted to be recited between the 2 recitations of Shema. According to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, one recites the morning Shema and then all the prayers, and only after the recitation of the evening, and in the evening, one recites Shema after all the prayers. In other words, all of our prayers are supposed to be sandwiched between Shema. In the morning, you say Shema first and then the rest of the prayers. And in the evening, you say first the rest of the prayers and then the Shema. And this brisa said, Mushka, wait. And this brisa said that first you recite Shema and then you pray. Whose opinion does that prove? The opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, who said you say Shema, then you say the blessing of redemption, which is part of the Shema, and then you say the evening prayers, which means Shema comes before the evening Shemona Esrei. Yes, Mushka. I see more toys that need to go into the white bucket, and I see more dreidels that need to go into the bag. And I see more garbage that needs to go in the garbage. I see Mendel putting a bunch of garbage in the garbage, and I see that Mushka's helping to clean up.
You said what?
You got a bag, but it's not open.
Okay, so you clean up. When you're done cleaning up, ask me the question. Okay, when all the toys are away and all the garbage is away, then you can ask me. So although the practical difference between these 2 positions is clear, in other words, we know that one of them says in the evening you say first Shema and then the silent prayer, the Amida, the Shemona Esrei prayer. And the other one says, no, first you say the Shemona Esrei, the Amida, the silent prayer, and afterwards you say Shema. So we know what the practical difference is. Do you say Shema before or after? But the Gemara seeks to determine with regard to what do they disagree? What is the basis of their argument? In other words, what are they arguing about? So the Gemara answers, if you want, you can say, If you want, you can say that they're disagreeing over the interpretation of a verse. And if you wish, you could say that they disagree on a point of logic. So we're going to first discuss the logical argument between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. Here's all the stuff cleaned up. I see papers that need to go in the garbage, and I see a bag of popcorn that needs to go in the garbage. So the logical argument over here, if you want to say that they disagree on a point of logic, the argument relates to the redemption, the blessing of redemption, which is recited after Shema, whose focus is the exodus from Egypt, the first redemption. The question is whether that redemption began at night, which would render it appropriate to juxtapose redemption to the blessing of the evening prayers as well, in prayer for immediate redemption, or perhaps the redemption from Egypt only began during the day. In other words, we're reciting a blessing of redemption with the blessings of Shema. And the question is, are we hoping for redemption at night as well? Or are we only hoping for redemption during the daytime? If the exodus from Egypt, in one more minute. So put your shoes on, Micah. Your shoes are already on. Okay, so good luck. You can each take 2 of these coins. If you say that redemption of Egypt only happened during the daytime, then our redemption when Mashiach comes is also going to start during the daytime. So our prayers for the redemption are most potent during the day. But if you say that the exodus from Egypt began at night, then the future redemption, the redemption that we're praying for, can also start at night. And our prayers for the ultimate redemption, the imminent redemption, with the coming of Mashiach, are also potent and timely in the nighttime. Let's pause here and come back to this discussion next week, God willing. Same time, same channel. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to stop the share. And Mendel and Mushka, do you want to say hello to everyone? You guys did a pretty good job.
Oh, I should have gotten it. Hello.
Okay. Thank you, Bela
Hello.
Esther. I want to say on behalf of everyone, let's dedicate today's learning to the yahrzeit of the sister of Bela Esther. Her name again was
Sarah Bathsheba,
Sarah Bat Shira, and your father's name was,
Joseph,
sorry?
Joseph.
Yosef. Sorry, Sarah Bat Yosef.
Oh,
Her neshama should have an aliyah, and
Look
she
at
should
that.
be a good advocate for you, for the entire family, and for all of us here. Thank you, Zalman, for joining. Thank you, Joan and Susie, for joining. Thank you, Mendel and Mushka, for joining. We wish
yes.
you all a wonderful day, a wonderful week. Yes,
And
I
you
could.
too.
See you all
You too,
next
Rabbi,
week.
and your
Same time,
family.
All right.
Same channel, yes.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thank
Enjoy your
you
barbecue.
all.